we didn't feel like going back again. So,
yeah, my kids have been in church maybe some of them only 2 or 3 times. It's just a miserable experience because I can't stand the parties.
Yeah.
Follow?
Yeah. No. Thank you.
There's somebody over there. Had their hand up before. And
Can I share a question?
no.
I believe.
Okay. What do you guys have a question?
Okay, what's your name again?
Chris.
All right, Chris, I have a question for you specifically. You stated Homo habilis, Homo erectus, not Homo erectus, but I think you said,
I said Homo erectus.
okay, Homo erectus.
It's an actual legitimate name. I didn't.
Yeah.
It's not a word.
No, I understand all those names. Colin Patterson, I don't know if you're familiar who he was.
I'm afraid not.
He was the head of the British Museum of Natural History at one time, which housed the largest fossil collection in the world. I don't know if it still does, but it did at one point.
It's a beautiful facility. I can't see it all in one day.
Okay, well, he said, I fully agree with your comments on the lack of direct illustration of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I would certainly have included them. I will lay it on the line, there is not one such fossil for which one could make a watertight argument. Would you know that he didn't?
What year was this?
This is probably like 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Well,
Not even, I this.
evolution is not a watertight. I mean, you show me one thing that's watertight, it's probably a Ziploc baggie, and that's about it. The thing about the theory of evolution is, and what most people don't understand about the word theory is something that has not been disproven. Nobody has come up with enough evidence to disprove the theory of evolution. There are people that don't think it's true. There are people that just outright deny that the theory even exists, which is fine. But nobody has disproven the theory of evolution. It's not a fact because we can't equate it mathematically. But nobody has disproven it. And the way I look at it, Trista, when she goes out in her career as a world-famous chemist and biologist, in the back of her mind, wants to be that person that disproves Darwin's theory of evolution, because her name will be set in the annals of history forever. And every scientist wants to do that, whether they're a meteorologist or a chemist or a geologist or whatever. And it hasn't happened yet, with millions of scientists secretly plotting to overthrow Darwin themselves so they can replace his name in the annals of history, and it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and a follow-up. He wrote a book titled Evolution, and Luther Sutherland read that book. The reason that
Sutherland is?
he's a Christian author, he's a
Okay.
creationist, and he wrote Luther Sutherland, or he wrote, Colin Patterson, and asked him, I read your book, Mr. Patterson, but I noticed you didn't have any direct illustrations of evolutionary transitions in the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew Colin Patterson's the head of this British Museum of Natural History. He said, why? And that was Colin Patterson's response to that. So I'm wondering if what you stated so quickly, like it was just fact, it was easy to understand, and it was just, it's just there, the evidence is right before
It's
us.
easy for me to take 4 inches follow.
Well, Colin Patterson, I'm sure, had done this.
He probably took a few.
Yeah, he probably a few and more. So why then, how do you know something with such, I guess my question is, with such vigor and such assurance that these are all transitions eventually leading up to human beings, or Homo sapiens. Why then is he, when you look at all, I'm sure he's seen more fossils than you have.
Oh, yeah.
Why did he say this then? If it's so obvious and if it's so, what do you know that he didn't know?
I don't. I'm just very certain that evolution
I can
is
stretch it there.
okay.
Right?
Colin Patterson is wrong. There are plenty of transitional forms. Archaeopteryx is between a dinosaur and a bird that has feathers, the dinosaur with feathers. The Eohippus, the dog Mars. We've got lots of, he's wrong or else he has an ulterior motive. 98% of all scientists accept evolution. It's a fact.
It's a fact.
Yes, it's a fact. The theory of, there are different theories. Darwin is one theory, but evolution itself is
You
a
can't have
fact.
an argument about Archaeopteryx.
Yeah, well, that's a transitional form.
But you asked me why I'm so
Yeah, I
certain,
know.
because there's enough to satisfy me. If there's not enough to satisfy that gentleman, well, that's him. But there's enough to satisfy me. There's also DNA evidence to satisfy me.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, the gentleman right there.
Also, I'll add one more thing to that, and also to add to that, there's so many fossils that don't survive. Almost no fossils survive. The vast majority of them are never found to begin with. So what we have now is such a fragmented history of our first past, and despite that even, it's one man saying this, and the reason that evolution or natural selection is so well taken is because so many people have come together and agreed on it, not just one person
So
saying
you're
it.
arguing from lack of evidence, then.
What's that?
So you're arguing from lack of evidence, then. That there's nothing is preserved, therefore.
I'm arguing that
It's hard to see.
we're doing with what we best, what we can, we're with what we have right now, is what we're doing, is what they're trying to.
Well, I agree, that's what they're trying to do.
What's your argument for God? Why is
Yeah.
God?
Okay.
We're gonna default to God.
This sounds like a very fun discussion. This isn't the place for that.
So how about 9 o'clock?
Yeah, at 9 o'clock, you're more welcome to come and we can talk a little bit more in depth about that. That's not what we're here for today.
We can be caffeinated while we do it.
Yes.
I'm kind of completely different topic here, but I was just wondering what you guys think of the validity of the Bible. Just throw it out there, either like historically or anything.
I would say, I just don't believe that it's the word of God. It's never, because it says it is, that's generally speaking the only proof that people use. It's the fact that in the book it says that it's the word of God. But
Yeah, and I'm obviously not a biblical scholar or anything. I haven't read the whole book cover to cover, front to back. But I think if there is any historical merit to it, which is probably all it would be good for besides maybe some good, moral philosophies. But if there's a historical merit to it, I think we would need to have other sources, just like anything else. And if we do have those other sources and they confirm it, then maybe those historical things are accurate. And I don't know the status of those things, so.
Well, I was just going to ask, like the Jewish religion, like the Old Testament and Torah.
The Old Testament is common to all three major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
You're kind of looking at the Bible as one book, a collection of multiple books. It's not just written by one person, one individual. It was written by several authors. Not like, it is like, not that it doesn't have like a direct authorship from God, but like, there are several people who are responsible for writing it.
Well, that's the claim, is that it was authored or inspired directly by God. And that's the claim of the Bible. I personally, as far as any conversations I've had with my fellow panelists here, none of us accept that claim, and that's circular logic. And it just, in terms of your first question, what do we think of the validity? I give it no validity myself. So
there's no historical anything
there are some things that happen in the Bible, some things that are historically accurate.
A little bit down.
Well, yeah, and it's a historical book. Like I said, there are some things that actually happened. There's a lot of things that, like he said, didn't happen or can't be proven otherwise. So in terms of the idea that it was divinely inspired, I don't accept that.
Well, that's where, when I said the first time, it's like, if the Bible claims something, and we have, a multitude of other sources that say the same thing, then we could maybe take some stock in it. But if it's just the Bible saying that, and to it being multiple books, to me that's a more convincing argument that it's not the infallible Word of God. You had all these books over hundreds of years put together by different meetings by the early church, and they just kind of decided what they thought was best, and a lot of things that people asserted would have been part of it was left out. And so it's hard to take anything of truth from it at all.
I was going to say, isn't it something like, if, like, there's a couple sources that say the same thing, it's accepted as, like, truth kind of in a way? So wouldn't, like, the meeting between, like, different churches and stuff like that, and, the fact that there's many authors of the Bible, wouldn't that kind of work with it?
A little bit more inspired, since there are multiple authors that have, like, the same general theme throughout each of the books of the Bible.
But the historical, a lot of the stuff that they say, the four gospels, they do contradict each other in other spots, which almost takes away from it being valid in terms of historical content.
You state one just for the record.
I'm not a scholar. I've read plenty of them, but I don't bother myself.
Skeptics Annotated Bible. Google that and you can go through the whole
Well,
book.
I can Google this.
Well, yeah, not offhand. It's
Okay.
not offhand right now.
I think that there is kind of something to what you're saying. If you guys, has anyone here ever, well, doesn't matter, you've read like the Iliad or the Odyssey, there's a substantial amount of like evidence in just, archaeological excavation and political history to suggest that some of the things that happened in the Iliad and the Odyssey